Hello and welcome to The View from 22. I'm Ben Lazarus, the Spectator's Special Projects Editor. After a week in which we've seen a ceasefire in Gaza and a prisoner hostage swap between the Israelis and the Palestinians, I'm joined by Avi Issacharoff, the writer of the hit TV show Fauda, to discuss the ongoing conflict. How damaging do you think the ceasefire has been in terms of the Israeli operation in Gaza?
Look, it was a halt, let's say, and this is the sixth day or the seventh day, and it's a kind of a problem for the IDF, but it's not a big problem, let's put it that way. I know from my sources that, yes, it's a slowdown in the Israeli operation, in the moving forward and taking over an area after an area, a neighborhood after a neighborhood in North Gaza at least. But this is a price that we had to pay in order to see those kids and the women back home in Israel. So it was a kind of a price that Israel was willing to pay in order to see the kids and the moms going back home, and the old ladies, of course, all of them. And then, yes, we will see the renew of the fighting, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, but I do not really doubt that we will witness the renew of the war.
What does the next stage of the conflict look like? I mean, there's lots of reports about the Israelis planning to go south to target the Hamas leadership there. There's been some sort of briefings from the American side of things saying that the operation can't look like what it did in the north when it comes to the south. How do you see it necessarily playing out when the IDF goes south?
I think that we're going to see more of the same, like what we had seen in the north. We're going to see also in Khan Yunis area. Especially Khan Yunis, because it's the stronghold of Hamas, because it's the house or the home of Hamas's leadership, especially the refugee camp in Khan Yunis. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, Mohammed Deif, the head of the military wing, they were both born in Khan Yunis refugee camp, so-called. And the brother of Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Sinwar, was also one of the prominent leaders in Hamas's military wing. And they built a huge infrastructures of tunnels and bunkers underneath Khan Yunis city, underneath Khan Yunis refugee camp. And the Israeli army wants to get there, and it will get there.
And before it gets there, how much more fighting do you think is left to be done in the north?
I think that we will see the renew of the fighting in some of the areas that the IDF already took over because of this ceasefire, because it gave the Hamas the option to send some troops over to the north by the tunnels or by other means. And they will try to renew the fighting over there and to show that they did not surrender and they did not really give up the control over those neighborhoods. And adding to that, of course, you have two very big areas in the northern Gaza Strip, which are Jabalia and Shaja'iyya, that weren't taken by the IDF, and I'm sure that the IDF will renew its attack in those specific areas.
We've seen this week the release of many hostages, and obviously these are the hostages that Hamas is happy to show the world. What sort of conditions do you think the other hostages who aren't being released, namely the soldiers, might be being kept in?
I'm sure that they are being held in not so good conditions. We know that some of the prisoners that were released this week, meaning the women and the kids, were suffering from not starvation but lack of food, with very bad medical treatment. And I'm sure that many of those soldiers or men that are there in captivity are suffering from worse conditions and bad treatment. We know that some of the kids, some of even the foreign Thai workers that were kidnapped into Gaza was suffering from beating, from psychological torturing, from yelling, from, again, some violence against kids that were crying at night, like 12 years old, 11 years old. So I'm sure that the soldiers are facing even way more severe conditions.
What do you make of reports that one of the hostages was kept in the attic of a house belonging to a UN worker?
I don't know about that. I don't know to confirm it, yes or no. But listen, the situation in Gaza right now is that many of the houses, many of the families that are there in Gaza are very pro-Hamas. That's not something that I invented. This is not such a kind of a secret. We know that Hamas is very popular in Gaza Strip. We know that many of the people in Gaza are working for Hamas, whether for the military wing, which is around 40 till 50,000 people, or for Hamas's government, Hamas's police, etc. That brings us to a huge number of people that are being financed by Hamas. And we didn't get to the tunnels, for example. The tunnels were built since 2007, since Hamas's coup. And just as a reminder, Hamas took over Gaza in a very violent coup against the PA, against the Palestinian Authority in Fatah, killed 160 Palestinians in order to take over the Gaza Strip. Since then, they've been building a huge network of tunnels using thousands of people. That this is how they were making a living, to dig those tunnels underneath Gaza. We're not talking about a small tunnel in the dark that you need to crawl. These are big tunnels that sometimes you can walk, sometimes you can ride a motorbike, and sometimes you can drive a car underneath Gaza Strip. So this is a tunnel just like you see in Western cities, that you can drive safely with a car from a place to place.
And am I right in thinking that you spent time in Gaza with the Hamas leadership before?
I did. I was there till 2007, and since 2007, I was not allowed from the Israeli side. They didn't allow me to go into Gaza anymore.
And how did you find the Hamas leadership? Could you have ever imagined that they would be capable of doing what they did on October the 7th?
Look, I knew that they were, the leaders of a terrorist organization. We knew that they do not really fond of Israelis or Jews in general. But there was a kind of a status quo, a kind of an understanding that, at the end of the day, we will need to live with them, although we don't like them, meaning the Israelis. I remember myself being in Mahmoud al-Zahar's house, one of the leaders of the political wing, and that was at December 2005, just before the elections for the parliament. And he said, if we will win the elections for the parliament, we will do some kind of a commercial agreement, some kind of an agreement with the Israelis that will allow us to live, meaning around electricity and water and sewage, etc. So we'll be able to stay in Gaza as a kind of a normal territory or normal place to live in. Since then, something had changed in Hamas. We found out about that only on October 7th. We thought that they were logical people that you can negotiate with, maybe offering them some kind of economic prosperity. 18,500 people, Palestinians, were going out from Gaza into Israel every day to work in Israel. I had people just here outside my house in Tel Aviv from Gaza, from Rafah, in the southern edge of Gaza Strip, that were working here in Tel Aviv. But all the attempts from the Israeli side, to offer them some kind of economic prosperity didn't really work. And at the end, they pulled this terrible war, and they forced Israelis and Palestinians to be drawn into this terrible war.
How worried are you about the West Bank? I mean, there's been quite a lot of simmering tension since the 7th of October. I know you've served in the West Bank yourself. Do you see things getting much worse there?
I'm not sure that it's going to get so much worse. I think that at the end we will see, more attempts, just like we'd seen in the last 24 hours, that some terrorists came to the entrance to Jerusalem and started shooting like crazy. And we might see more of that, more attempts, but I do not see a large-scale escalation in the West Bank, mainly because of the Palestinian Authority that is not interested in that, and it's trying to do whatever it's possible in order to prevent it from taking place.
As an Israeli, what do you make of the response in the West? I don't know how closely you may or may not have followed the reaction in the West. But are you quite disappointed that the response has not been overwhelmingly on your side?
You know, I don't know if I'm surprised. That's the word. Yes, I am disappointed to see that. I did think that, when I had this argument with a good friend of mine from LA that said that now the whole world is with Israel, and I said it's going to last for like 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, and then again, people will start attacking us for retaliating, which is an absurd. And honestly, I stopped waiting for anyone in the West or in Europe especially, or in the UK, to be supportive of the state of Israel. And just like this movie, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I really don't give a damn anymore. I know that Israel needs to do whatever it needs to do in order to keep its citizens safe. Period. Simple as that. And if that means to take this Gaza Strip and to go for a war that would last for months and months, and to create such a damage that the Palestinians would bear in mind for the next 100 years, yes, we need to do that, and we will do that.
And what would your preferred outcome of the war be? Would you like to see the Gaza Strip controlled by the PA or occupied by Israel, or would you like to see sort of an international peacekeeping body oversee the whole thing?
I think that, the fantasy would be some kind of an international body, organization, a few countries that will take over Gaza and manage it. But this is a fantasy. This is a dream that will not come true. I don't see any volunteers waiting in line to take over the responsibility of the Gaza Strip. I know that the Arab countries like Egypt and the others are totally not interested in managing Gaza's in future. The Palestinian Authority is very weak, it's very corrupt, and it doesn't have any kind of a political horizon, since the government of Israel doesn't want to show it any kind of a political horizon. So I'm not sure that they are even relevant as a kind of an option in Gaza. I think that at the end, the less worse scenario will be that the Israeli government will get to some kind of an understanding and agreement with the PA. The Palestinian Authority will help it to get stronger and will allow it to manage the issues of Gaza. I think that reoccupying Gaza Strip, it's a mistake. We don't need that. We don't want that. I think that what we do know for sure is that we need to bring down Hamas.
And if Netanyahu was to strike a deal with the Palestinian Authority, would he be able to politically survive that? I mean, would that be something he could actually do?
The answer is very long. No. Simple as that. He won't survive it. His coalition is full right-wingers, and they will not even allow him to move 1 millimeter towards the Palestinian Authority or Mahmoud Abbas, the president. Definitely not getting into any kind of an agreement, political agreement with them, or withdrawing from a territory here, or withdrawing from a settlement over there. It's not on the table, and it will be the end of his government. But again, I'm not that sure that this government, the Israeli government, will survive after the war. I think that the last day of the war will also be the last day of this government.
All right. Well, look, Avi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you very much.